so many new pieces to this IU football team.
To me, that's going to set the tone on how you get ready for games on Saturday in the fall.
I would put that Indiana room up against anybody else in the conference, and that's something that we typically don't even come close to saying.
If you want to get total sickos committee about it, there's a position battle at long snapper too.
This is the Hoosier Huddle Podcast, part of the College Huddle Podcast Network.
TJ, it's been 3 weeks, but we finally have game day. It is Rose Bowl week. It is something that everybody's been looking forward to since December 6th or December 7th, depending on what time you got home after Indiana's Big Ten championship game win over Ohio State. Your number 1 Hoosiers take on little old number 9 Alabama. They're not little old Alabama. They're a very, very good team, but that seems to be the card that they're playing on social media, is that nobody's rooting for them. They're not expected to be here, and that they're the true underdog story of this game. But Indiana travels out to Pasadena. The Rose Bowl will be on ESPN at 4 o'clock on January 1st. The weather is going to be a big topic of discussion here, TJ. A lot of fans probably disappointed. I know you are, that today it's nice and sunny, 70 degrees in Pasadena. But looking at the forecast for the worst day looks to be on Wednesday, which is the 31st. Possibly over an inch of rain, maybe closer to 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches. On game day, the high is 60 degrees, 100% chance of rain during the day. Rainfall near 1/2 inch. It says periods of rain. The winds won't be bad, which I think could help the passing game. But this forecast has put a kind of a damper on the festivities, but I still think a lot of people will go out. But it could give Indiana a huge advantage.
It could. I think that there's a couple of different ways that rainy conditions can play out. One that I think absolutely matters, this is a grass field. And the Pasadena area, you mentioned nice on Tuesday, nice on Monday, but looking like, one, they just had a bunch of rain during Christmas week. So it's a little soggy already. A couple of nice days to dry things out a little bit. But if it rains a lot on Wednesday and it does not have any sun on Thursday to dry things out, even if it doesn't rain much on Thursday, you're still going to have a pretty soggy field on game day. Now, that could certainly make it more likely that the team that can run the ball is able to move it better on offense, because if it's a soggy field and it's rainy and the ball's wet, that could impact the passing game. Another thing that could happen, though, is that the footing on the perimeter is shaky. Alabama likes to throw it to the edge and get the ball to guys like Jeremy Bernard and Ryan Williams, particularly Williams, on short passes to the outside because they cannot trust his hands down the field. But if you get him those little wide receiver tunnel screens against a secondary that typically tackles incredibly well, but if their footing is shaky and Williams is able to make a guy miss and get in the open field, that could turn into advantage Alabama. But I think on the whole, if you're saying, hey, which team should be able to handle a sloppy field better, you would say the one that can lean on the running game, and that would be IU. Alabama, as we'll talk about here, just shockingly poor at running the ball. So that absolutely could matter. I do think that the weather is going to be a factor. You could have a game where ball handling becomes absolutely paramount. And a game that if you make a couple of mistakes, fumbling the ball, that is much wetter than what you're used to playing with, flips the game.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an absolute storyline. Obviously, it's not going to be the setting that you dream about and that you see every New Year's Day, right? As in the history of the Rose Bowl, a rainy game has only happened a handful of times, and it's not something we're accustomed to seeing.
Of course,
Unfortunately,
it only happens a handful of times when we go out there.
yeah, if it as incredibly disappointing as it is, and it absolutely is. Not only is it during the game, it's the day before, and it looks like the day after. Your trip to California for a lot of IU fans, myself included, might be a total washout in terms of what you had hoped to do outside. Now, the teams on the field, all that matters is the game, of course, and you have to play with the hand that you're dealt. I happen to have a ton of confidence in IU's coaching staff and IU's team to be able to stay focused and be locked in on the task at hand. But it is going to be a different deal. They've not really had much in terms of adverse weather conditions this season, so that is going to be kind of unique.
Yeah, well, Indiana's played in the rain. You had the
They have.
squall against Michigan State,
Yep.
especially at the end of the game there. It rained up at Oregon on and off.
And I that might be the biggest comparison point if the weather forecast goes slightly better than expected, where it's a on and off rain, right? Where you have maybe, oh, look, it's moderate rain for 10 minutes and then kind of a drizzle for the next hour. And then maybe a tiny period of moderate rain again. It looks like that is the most likely, for the 3 to 4 hour window of the game. That could, of course, shift, but I think that is a good comparison point just in terms of the athletes you're going up against and the weather.
The biggest difference there is the natural turf at the Rose Bowl and the artificial
Yes.
turf up at Oregon.
Yes.
I don't know if they tarp the field. One, it doesn't rain that often, so who knows if they have a tarp that big. Two, they're getting the field prepared for both teams with the end zones and stuff, which would be and I hate using travesty because there are bigger travesties in the world than not having the end zones painted for the Rose Bowl. But it would kind of suck
it would.
For that not to have the field done. But if they don't turf the field and they've got a ton of rain over the past week, plus another over an inch the day before, that this comes down to, does your equipment guy bring the right cleats? And does he use the right cleats in the first place? Indiana's played in bad weather. It's not going to be super cold. It is not going to be like Purdue where it's 10 degrees or like it is right now, 18 degrees with a 40-mile-an-hour wind in Indiana. So it's, to me, IU is the tougher team. Alabama's going to have to match that physicality. IU runs the ball better. I think Fernando is better suited to throw in the rain than Ty Simpson. He does like to move it, and if it is move the pocket, if it is a slippery track, how is his footing going to be? Brian Williams has had trouble catching the ball all year. How is he going to do on a wet ball, even on those short passes? And then it's a slippery track for everybody. So, you talked about the short passes to the outside and it maybe being mushy outside the numbers. It goes for the wide receivers too.
Sure.
There's you could try and cut and your foot goes out from you and your knee hits the ground. What could have been a 15-yard play is now a 0-yard play. Mm-hmm. So, the wind, it says 5 to 10 miles an hour. I don't think that is going to play a factor. It's tough kicking a wet ball. It gets heavy, but that is also same thing happens in the cold. So Indiana's kickers are used to kicking a cold ball the last couple weeks, and we'll see how it plays in there. But fielding punts, field goals, kickoffs, all those things are going to be affected. And IU is just so sound in those areas that it's not going to be like Oklahoma missing 2 or 3 kicks with their kicker, or
Right.
dropping a punt and getting a punt block and things like that. So let's move on to the key matchup, TJ. And I talked about this on the
it increases the focus required on all of those typically routine plays, right?
Yeah.
It's just the focus required on each of those. That's going to be there regardless of the weather because of the elevated stage and the competition and the stakes in this game. But with that weather, even the routine plays could turn into an adventure if you're not locked in on, like you said, handling that punt or kicking the routine extra point. Those things have to be buttoned up. It's the best way I can think to put it. And as you said, Indiana has been so sound in those fundamental areas. You just hope that continues to be the case. But yeah, let's move on to what you think is that key matchup. Of course, I know a lot of people have focused on Alabama's inability to be two-dimensional on offense. But where do you go with for your key matchup in this game?
Yeah, so somebody asked me last night what scares me about Alabama, and it's their talent on the outside. They might not have produced this year. Ryan Williams is having a down year. He still has like 800 yards. But the quality of athlete out there scares you. So my matchup to watch is Indiana's secondary against Alabama's wide receivers. Who does D'Angelo Pons take? Does he take Jeremy Bernard? Does he do what they did against Ohio State where they put him on the best receiver? I know Jeremiah Smith had 140 some odd yards, but 50 of them came on a last second Hail Mary to the 50-yard line. But he has the ability to mentally bounce back. And then Brian Haynes said yesterday when I asked him, like, what makes D'Angelo special? It's his body control. That's something that on a wet field, he controls better than most people. And allows him to play bigger than his 5'9" stature. He could get to a spot, jump, beat the receiver to the ball. He's just in an elite corner, even though he's kind of small size-wise. So, look, if D'Angelo's dad's watching, I'm not bagging on his size. He makes his size play bigger than his 5'9" frame. And that's a testament to how talented he is. But then you have Jamari Sharp and the safeties, which, what would you say? After the Oregon game, they really started to clean up. Oregon, Michigan State, they really started to clean up those communication errors. Right around the time Lou Moore's legal battle against the NCAA ended, they really locked in, and Sig has alluded to that. So to me, it's can you cover those guys? And then it probably ties into the pass rush as well. Can you get to Ty Simpson and give the secondary some help covering these guys? So that's my matchup to watch. Alabama's wide receivers, Indiana's secondary.
Yeah, and you mentioned the pass rush. That's what I was going to go with to help out that secondary against those dangerous weapons, getting pressure on Ty Simpson. Indiana, number 1 in the country in pressure rate. Alabama has struggled at times to protect Ty Simpson. That's something that if you can keep Alabama from finding any rhythm in the running game, you can tee off on that pass rush. Now, I do want to, since we haven't talked about IU's offense in this key matchup part, I will go over to that side of the ball for mine. And I'm going to go with IU's offensive line as a key to this game, particularly if the weather is as we expect. This is the type of game that I think Indiana needs to, again, show how much growth they have made at the line of scrimmage. They were overwhelmed.
The thing, they're healthy now.
They're healthy now. They were overwhelmed last season by Ohio State and at times by Michigan and at times against Notre Dame. That has not been the case so far this year. They were the more physical team on both sides of the line of scrimmage against Oregon, and they were Ohio State's equal at the line of scrimmage, particularly in that second half when there was a switch with Khalil Benson coming back in at right tackle and doing a much better job against Caden Curry than they did in the first half with Michalski. So if this turns into a game where it's difficult for the offenses to find their footing because of the rain and the field conditions, I would expect Indiana to turn to their offensive line, say, all right, this is your game. Open up holes. Let's mash.
Yep.
And for Pat Coogan to lead that unit against an Alabama defense that is good against the run, but they're not great. In the 40s against the rush, and the pass rush, they don't send a ton of pressure. I know that that's kind of the MO that people have in their mind with Kane Womack. They were second to last in the SEC in terms of the amount of blitzing that they did. They haven't shown the propensity to throw a bunch of blitzes at opposing quarterbacks. If Indiana can protect Fernando Mendoza and force Alabama to blitz in order to try and get pressure, right, which means that they do not get home with the four-man front without sending pressure, that they've got to send extra guys. If IU can force that, plus run the ball effectively, then you open up the back end for Fernando Mendoza to have a good day against a very talented Alabama secondary. But still, if you give him time, I like his chances, and I like IU's receivers' chances. Omar Cooper back and healthy. Elijah Surratt, we know what he's going to do. And then, guys like Charlie Becker, IU's tight ends, maybe the running backs get involved in the screen game. E.J. Williams. IU fans know these names, know what these guys are capable of, but you've got to protect Fernando Mendoza. You've got to run the ball well to set things up for the pass. And I think this could be a game, given the weather, that IU's offensive line has to make yet another statement about how far they've come in the past year.
Yeah, and they've answered the bell every time.
Exactly.
It was, Illinois is so good. They're going to dominate. Well, Indiana beat them by 53.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Iowa's defensive line, and I don't know where Alabama stacks up, but where would you put Alabama between Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon? Out of those three are clear. Yeah, and Penn State. Or those four are the four best defensive lines that IU's played.
I'd put them below Ohio State by a decent margin. I would put them
everywhere else.
I would put them equal to Oregon and a slight edge over Penn State because the Nittany Lions have struggled some against the run at times. Although on that day they appeared plenty motivated. And then I'd put them right there with Iowa as well. But I would say below Ohio State. Also, I'd put them below Ohio State with secondary talent, particularly at the safety position. Not that Alabama's are at all bad, but, Ohio State's back seven is remarkable. So I just in terms of the defensive front, this will be an equal challenge to what the offense saw against Oregon, in my opinion.
Yeah, where IU against Oregon ran the ball 37 times for 111 yards. That's including the sacks. I hate that they add sacks into rushing yards in college football because it's not a running play; it's a passing play. But in those games, the yards per carry numbers get kind of skewed with the sacks. But IU was effective running the ball. They ran it to where when they needed it, they ran it and set up second and manageable, third and manageable. And IU was, I think at the time, like 10 to 12 on third down against Oregon. And a lot of that had to do with them being in a 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3 and shorter because of that run game. They did the same thing against Ohio State. They broke off a couple long runs with Hemby and Kalen Black. I think the longest one was nearly 40 yards. It was like a 38-yard run. They've been doing that all year. They're not going to, outside of Roman Hemby's 85-yard run, 84-yard run against Purdue, they haven't had that super long home run. They've had broke a couple for 40 or 50. They have the chance to do that, especially if Alabama's going to sell out against the run. IU's guys could break a tackle and go far, especially in the rain if they bring people up. But then IU could pass it too. So it's. I also think they're just a tougher team, TJ. I think IU's the tougher team. And Alabama will have to show it. And, people said the same thing about Oklahoma last week being the tougher team, and Alabama stepped up. But I don't think if IU gets up 17-0, they're not going to hand Alabama the game like Oklahoma did.
There you go. Yep, there you go.
That's the difference. And I wanted to point this out because I said it last night, and we'll get into keys to victory. On the live chat, at practice yesterday, you could not tell the difference between that practice and a random spring practice. There's no difference, which is unbelievable. Like, outside of Aiden Fisher pumping everybody up in his speech and all that stuff, the attention to detail, the fluidness of practice, the focus, there was the standard is the standard, and that was clear evidence of the standard is the same on March 17th and spring ball 1 when Signetti got there to, hey, this is our last practice in Bloomington before the Rose Bowl. The standard didn't change. And I think that's a really good thing. Some people might say, well, why does their practice look like a spring practice? Well, because the standard is always the standard is the answer. But IU will raise the victory flag and win the Rose Bowl. Not the Big Ten title game.
Yeah.
We'll change that. They already won the Big Ten title game. If they do this, start us off, TJ.
Win on third down. Oklahoma was, and I don't remember the exact number, but they were very successful in the first half against Alabama's defense on third down. A lot of it was John Mateer scrambling around and making plays. It's usually with his legs, picking up, 3rd and 4, and nothing's there. Mateer scrambles and got 6. So whatever the case is, they were able to be successful on third down. In the second half, that changed. Part of it was Oklahoma turning the ball over. Another part of it was Oklahoma lacking success on first and second down, putting themselves into third and medium, third and long situations. That offense is not meant to deal with that at all. Indiana's offense is significantly more consistent than Oklahoma's. And I do not think that Alabama will be able to rely on a couple of adjustments that they make at halftime or in the first quarter or second quarter. Maybe IU finds early success and Alabama makes an adjustment or two. I don't think that that's just going to totally, throw a crowbar into IU's offense and prevent them from moving. I think that Indiana, with Mike Shanahan, with Kurt Signetti, with Fernando Mendoza, that triumvirate, I don't think you're going to be able to make one adjustment and everything shuts down. I think that it will be a chess match all day between Womack and Shanahan and Signetti, but I think that I have a lot more confidence in IU's ability to counter whatever Alabama throws at them on defense to continue adjusting. If Indiana can stay on schedule, get themselves, as you just mentioned, into those third and short, I think IU can, one, control the ball, two, control field position, and then three, just wear Alabama's defense down by staying on the field on offense. We've seen IU do that time and time again. Stay on schedule on offense, wear an opponent down, get a lead, and bludgeon them with the running game in the second half. That's been the formula, and I think if Indiana can do that, being successful on third down, I really like their chances to get out of the Rose Bowl with a win. There's always the same answers you could always give. Win the turnover battle. Don't beat themselves. Score more points than the other team, right? I do think it'd be highly helpful for Indiana to not have any special teams miscues, as Oklahoma did, and to avoid throwing pick sixes by having your receiver and quarterback not on the same page, your quarterback not look, throw the ball straight to a defender, and allow him to gallop into the end zone to get your opponent right back in the game. That's probably not something you should do going against a team as talented as Alabama. So obviously, avoiding those critical mistakes. But, those are the obvious things, right? Beyond that, I think third down's a big one.
Yeah, I was going to go with the obvious things was, explosive plays. Those change the games as well. And IU's been very good at limiting them from the opponents. And also when they do get it, like Ohio State got a couple explosive plays to Jeremiah Smith. They buckled down, held them to field goals instead of touchdowns.
And Alabama really good in the red zone, a success rate near 90% on the season in the red zone. So
and they'll be aggressive and go for it on fourth down. That was one of the plays that turned that game in the first round. Was Kalen DeBoer going, instead of just taking points and kind of having the game settled down, he went for it on fourth down, turned it from 17-0 into 17-7. And then, look, Oklahoma made all sorts of mistakes. They dropped the pass that should have been 24-0. And I think at that point, it's curtains for Alabama. They might have made a comeback, but, at that point, down 24-0 on the road, and he really had nothing going. And then it started to snowball for Oklahoma. You had to drop punt after that. The tide turned, no pun intended. The tide turned really, really quickly. And all of a sudden, I think it was an 8-minute of game time span where they turned a 17-0 deficit into a 17-17 game at halftime. And I think IU's not going to panic like Oklahoma did. They're not going to try and take the big shots at, hey, we need momentum and grab it back. Now, IU will take shots downfield. We saw it against Ohio State. They, to me, need to play like they did at Oregon, like they did against Ohio State, where they're aggressive, but they're not stupid. They're not throwing YOLO balls down the field. Oregon, you started on defense. You got the big fourth down stop against Ohio State on the first offensive possession for the Buckeyes. You got a big interception by Lou Moore, and Indiana's done that more or less all year. Saw against Purdue, first drive for Purdue, interception. First drive for Iowa, interception. Two plays later is a touchdown. UCLA, pick six on the second play of the game. for IU. They feed off of that defense. If that defense could get an early stop, whether it be on fourth down or a 3-and-out or a turnover, and give the offense the ball and get that lead, I think that'll go a long way for an IU victory. Let's do best bets, TJ. I think the best bet is that people need to bring their rain gear.
Yeah, the odds on that are looking like minus like 25,000 or something. They're
Off
probably
the board.
Yeah, they're probably taking it off the board, aren't they?
Yes.
I'm going to go. I think that there is, understandably, a hesitancy.
Let me give you the numbers first from Betty MGM. They have IU -7 at -105. I think it opened at 7.5 or bounced between 6.5 and 7.5.
Yep.
The over/under is 48.5.
Yep.
And then you could get IU money line -250, Alabama money line at +200.
Yep. And there are plenty of places. FanDuel for one, you can still get this game at -6.5. I would find -6.5 and bet the Hoosiers. A lot of advanced analytics models have IU at 12.5, 13.5. S&P Plus for one has IU winning this game by 13. Last I looked, so I think that there's a hesitancy to take Indiana, given the just the mental block that's still in a lot of people's heads, understandably so, when you see IU versus Alabama in football. Just a snap, instinct in your head is, oh, well, Alabama's way more athletic, way more talented, way quicker. Yeah, they're underdogs. Oh, sure, give me the points. But given the model of consistency that IU has been throughout the season, and the confidence that I have in Kurt Signetti and this team, there's some potential rust to be shaken off quickly in this game after the long layoff. That's something that they haven't dealt with this season. How will they handle that? We can't be sure, right, until the game begins. But I would go with Indiana -6.5. That total, it's interesting to think about taking the under because of the weather. But I kind of think both coaches are going to be aggressive. I don't anticipate this being a game where they turtle up and are just real conservative. Alabama, they haven't shown the desire or ability to do that where we're just going to run the ball 45 times and get out of here. I don't think they're capable of doing that. So I'd stay away from the point total given the uncertainty with the weather. But I like Indiana -6.5 quite a bit.
Yeah, I was gonna take the under. Yeah, you kind of talked me out of it. First, I hate betting the unders. It's betting against fun.
Right.
But it is.
That's why we are not professional gamblers. That's one of the many reasons we are not. But
yeah, that and one, you can't get it in South Carolina, and two,
there are ways.
There are definitely ways. And two, it's too stressful.
There you go.
Yeah, but for me, given the forecast, I think it's going to end up a slop fest, and I don't know if there are going to be enough possessions to put up 48.5 points in this. I do like IU to win. However, with the weather, maybe some limited possessions, I do think Alabama covers. So we'll see. So let's go score predictions, TJ.
I'm going to go with Indiana winning this game 31-20. 31-20. Indiana wins. and that again, that's pushing slightly over that total, but IU wins by 11. I think Indiana gets off to a nice start. I think IU is in not blowout, but comfortable control of this game from the first quarter on. I think IU is the more consistent, more proven, better overall team, and makes fewer mistakes than Alabama does on Thursday, and advances to the semifinals in Atlanta.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I take IU to win. I said, I think on our early preview, 24-14 IU. The weather has changed that for me. I think IU wins 20-14, or maybe something like 17-14. It's I don't see a ton of points being put up. However, there's no win, so I could be wrong. Hopefully we're both wrong about the weather and that forecast changes, but it doesn't look like it. So I'm going to take Indiana 20, Alabama 14. Indiana advances to the semifinal game against the winner of Texas Tech, Oregon, in the Peach Bowl in TJ's favorite city to drive in, Atlanta. So yeah.
You should probably leave. Let's see.
Leave after the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, probably if the Rose Bowl's over around 4 or 5 o'clock. Give yourself a couple hours to celebrate, and then if you're driving, start now.
Yeah,
and you might get there in time.
Yeah. So, one final thing before we get out of here, TJ. I talked to Andy Graham and wrote an article from his point of view on this whole trip, and it's more than just for IU fans. It's more than just a stop on the way in the playoff. It's the Rose Bowl means something to Big Ten fan bases. Indiana's 13-0, won a Big Ten championship. They haven't been out there in nearly 60 years. And I want all IU fans to just soak it up. Soak it up, stop and smell the roses for a little bit, enjoy the game no matter what the weather is. You don't know when you're going to go back. And that's just the nature of the sport right now. So you could make the playoff every year. You never know if you're going to get placed in the Rose Bowl all that often. So enjoy it. We'll be out there. TJ will be out there earlier than I will. I'll be out there hopefully on time, 4:30 on New Year's Eve, 4:30 California time. We have Nick and Ben already out there. They'll cover team arrivals at the hotel tonight. If you are out in LA, IU's team is going to arrive at the Intercontinental around 8:40 local time. So if you're on the East Coast and waiting for video and all that stuff, have an extra cup of coffee tonight. But they're supposed to arrive at 8:40 local time. There's some fun events going on as well. Other podcast sites have shows and parties going on. Enjoy those as well. And then we'll be around the Rose Bowl on game day. Feel free to suggest a meetup. Suggest if you see us, stop and say hi. We love interacting with fans, and we'll have most of our Hoosier Huddle team out there, TJ.
Yeah, it's going to be a great time. I agree with you. The weather, unfortunately, we can't control it. And
if you have any indoor or weather-friendly, kid-friendly things for TJ and his family to do out there, please send them in the comments. I'll pass them along to TJ. Look, the Labara Tar Pit Museum looks awesome. I don't know if kids are into that, but it's inside, half outside.
Yeah.
And something you could only do in LA as well. So enjoy the Rose Bowl. Come back to HoosierHuddle.com. Again, we do a small subscription fee. It's $3 a month, $30 for the year. There is a free option as well. But that small fee does help us bring quality work, helps us travel to games. and things like that. So it helps us fix and redo the site, from earlier this year. So anybody who's subscribed already, thank you. We appreciate it. We love interacting with you on the forums. And then if you're new, just, there's a free option if you want to try it out. If you want to try it out for a month for the playoff run, it's $3 for the month. If you want to, hey, you love what you see, it's $30 a year, and no pressure at all. So, all right. Happy New Year, TJ. Safe travels. We'll see you out in Pasadena. And hopefully we are talking about an Indiana win come January 2nd. I missed all the portal stuff.
Yeah. Whatever are we going to talk about next week, man? Who knows?
Ton of stuff.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. All right. Thanks for listening. You could subscribe wherever you get your podcasts: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Follow us on X at Hoosier_Huddle. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back after the Rose Bowl.